Hey Heidi, do you want to be president
Not really. President of what?
of everything of the U.S.?
No, but I
It-
probably could do a good job at it.
Well, how about this? Let's put it this way: if you were president, what would you be? What would be sort of the platform you're running on?
Shoes.
Like Bootsy Collins with like goldfish in the heel kind of shoes,
Yeah,
or what are we
for
talking?
sure.
Okay,
Platform shoes. Yes.
right.
No.
Yes. No. I got the reference. Thank you.
Puppies and happiness and love
Mm-hmm.
for all and love is love
Mm-hmm.
and all good things.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You think that would go over with people?
Probably not. That's why
Yeah,
it's a really bad job, and I probably
that's
wouldn't get it.
that's true. So we want to tell you about this new card game called If I Was President, which right now seems like a terrible job, but maybe in a few weeks it seems like a much better job. Who knows?
That's true.
I mean,
Hopefully.
I guess depends where you're sitting. Either it's a terrible job now or it's a great job now, and then it could all switch in a few weeks.
So how do you play the game? Like, what do you do?
It is a game where you are pitching your platform to your fellow players and you're trying to win an election. So I guess you're just making up stuff and hoping enough people believe you, and then you can just change and do whatever you want once you're in office, I think.
Oh, well, that sounds like life.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if there are lobbyists in this game, because there should be.
Oh, yeah, there probably should be.
Yeah.
And can you pick whatever platform, or is it real stuff?
I would run on kittens and trees, and,
Right, look at that. We'd be like a puppies versus kittens.
I know.
It
I mean, in my mind, it says polling Hedquist, but we could flip that. And the slogan would be hang in there, right?
would totally be hanging there.
But I think robes for all,
Robes for all is a must.
like free kittens for anyone who wants one,
Puppies.
and puppies. And then,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe the occasional high five. For more information and to get your 2020 edition of If I Was President, go to ifiwasgame.com.
Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
An entire bag of Reese's Pieces and didn't say a word. We were so, like the giant one, we just kept eating them because we were so traumatized from the camper scene in The Hills Have Eyes.
Right. Wait, shh. Do you hear that?
No,
Oh, we're in a spooky cemetery.
we are.
Ooh, it's
Doesn't seem
creepy.
very
It is.
spooky.
Yeah, we are. I know. Well, it's either this or we go and FaceTime in a California pizza kitchen. So it's one of the two.
They're about the same.
Thank you for ruining this. Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. I didn't know we were. I thought you said that right when my air conditioner turned on. So
Perfect,
I thought
exactly.
you were giving me shit about my air conditioner.
No,
I'm excited for the spooky cemetery.
I know it's going to be great, and it's so awful. I also found children singing the Freddy Krueger
Oh,
song
no.
too, that we can just
That's
lay
the
over
scariest
that.
thing ever. Ever. I could sing it.
The guy who mixed our film at some point was like, well, I had a day off. I figure I'll go out and record our own sounds and put them into our library, and we'll have extra sounds to put in. And he's like, I went to a playground and recorded some kids and like had to leave after 5 minutes because he was like, it is so creepy. Children just playing sounds creepy. He's like, it's no matter what you do, it could be a bright sunny day and it sounds just
Yes.
eerie and upsetting.
He's right. It is.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
So Friday night, I went to this wedding. It's a lovely wedding. It's a lovely venue. Everyone's distanced. Everyone's got masks. And it's 7:00, so the sun has just come down. And the couple standing under this
Okay.
sort of well-lit chuppah. And the bridesmaids and the groomsmen are in their places. And it's one of these weddings where a lot of people have a limp, and you don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Pocket Bells Cannon is playing.
As it does.
You get the dun, dun, right.
I'm
Everyone stands up.
Quite familiar with it. Thank you. Yeah.
The bride and her dad are walking down the aisle. from the parking lot right next to the venue, connected to the venue, part of the venue. Scott! Scott! And everyone's going, shh, guys, just quiet. The entire time they're walking in, this guy's screaming for Scott. It was amazing.
Did he find him?
I believe so, but he was there for the wedding. Scott was there for the wedding.
So he was screaming
like,
because Scott was missing the wedding? Is that why?
I don't know. I do not know. And I don't even know if they found Scott. Maybe Scott was at the bar.
Well, I hope Scott was at the bar. I hope he wasn't murdered by small children in the cornfields. I don't know.
Good point.
Wait,
so
that's a terrible story. There was like no resolution.
It was just one of the this wedding was just just sort of this continued element of things where you're just like, well, that's weird. It's like a bunch of people limping around. This is bizarre. Like, bridesmaids with limps. Where you're just like, I feel creepy.
Well,
this is
did
icky.
they all have like prosthetics? Did everyone sort of bond?
I didn't check if I was supposed to.
I mean,
there was a lot of crying out when the open bar started before the ceremony.
Oh.
And you've got Leon Russell limping around and yelling out that it's the open bar, and yeah. And the worst part about it, I don't know if Scott saw it.
I can't believe you never met Scott. Like, I would have spent the whole night trying to find Scott. I would have been like, hi, Scott, is that Scott? Hi.
Scott?
Oh my God. I win. I found Scott. Where do I win? I don't want the bouquet. I got Scott.
So here's something you'll be into. A podcast called 100% Random.
Yes.
This has got you written all over it.
It does have you written. It just basically is me.
Yeah, really.
Am I on the logo?
You should be. Not yet, but I think there's still time. I think Dion and friends could definitely still get you on there. 100% Random is a podcast from the Faux Avo Studios, and they talk every week, every other week, about a whole variety of things that are always fascinating and interesting. And they're just, I don't know, maybe it's me, but listening to the show, like, they're just fun guys to listen to.
Yeah, they are. I've actually listened to it.
Which, let's be honest, not every podcast is like that.
No, most of them are not that fun, but they are fun. And they do talk about like legit interesting things, like stuff we like to talk about, like strippers.
Well, exactly. If you look, this last episode they just posted a couple of days ago, the subject line is rave strippers and Jeff Goldblum.
I mean,
those are like...
Sounds like my birthday.
Right. Wait, what? So episode 18, Ho's Mad.
Okay.
What do you do when your hoe is mad, right?
I don't know. What do you do?
I don't know. This is why you need the show. Episode 19, How to Fight Depression. Now, come on. That's a range that Terry Gross wishes she could have.
I know, and they do it in a fun way. Like, it's not in a, this week you're going to be depressed, and then next week you got to figure out how to deal with an angry hoe. It's fun. It's like upbeat and cool, and it's like you're in the room hanging out.
Yeah, and I think next week, I don't want to give anything away, I believe next week is how to deal with your depressed hoe.
There you go. I mean...
So you can listen to the 100% Random podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or, I don't know, I guess you could go outside the studio and put your ear up against the wall, but that just seems like it would take more time.
It might be kind of creepy.
Yeah, just find it on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts.
Well, I did one as JC's. It was a JC's haunted house that I went to with a youth group, a church youth group that I was in. And, you know, I remember it was in an actual old residence. It was in an old Victorian house of some kind in Dallas. It was pretty lame. I can remember there being, I mean, it was a house, so it had a single staircase. It was a 2-story house. It had a single staircase in it, and they literally hung a sheet down the center of the stairway, so they had an upside and a downside. You know, none of that would even be allowed to be done anymore by code.
Right.
And I remember, you know, walking through a bathroom and they had some mannequin parts with blood, you know, with paint splatter, red paint splatter on it. It was really pretty lame. So I wasn't really too impressed. And then I went to another one later when I think I was a senior in high school by that time, and it was actually very innovative. In fact, as I use a lot of the stuff that I saw in that show now. It would be considered today called a pitch black. So you're walking
Hmm.
through the haunted house and you literally can't see your hand in front of your face through the entire show. And then suddenly a strobe light would come on and the actors would do whatever they were going to do, and then the strobe light would go off, and now you're stumbling around in the dark again trying to figure out where to go. And that happened 4 or 5 times throughout the haunted house. Of course I grabbed a couple of girls that were friends of mine that to go with me, and I'm just literally having to carry them through the haunted, and they're totally freaked out. And then there was one spot that I remember hearing somebody whisper, "Watch out for snakes." And then about that time, somebody grabbed my ankle. And I do not think I touched the floor again until I was in the parking lot.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, all this stuff about racing the light switch to the bed to make sure that to try to get to the bed before the darkness arose, and diving into the bed, jumping the last few feet to make sure whatever was under the bed wasn't going to grab me. All of that kind of stuff came back to me, and it totally freaked me. I left the girls. I didn't care.
like
it was really effective. And then I graduated from high school and went to college and started studying architecture. I was going to be a great architect, and we were doing a little deal where the Residents Association at Texas A&M University did a deal where the guys went over the girls' dorms and trick or treated for a while, and the girls went over the guys' dorms and trick or treated for another while. So my roommate and I got ready, and he dressed as Groucho Marx. He already had the hair, and he put a big mustache on with a permanent marker that took days for it to come off. It was awful. I dressed up as a vampire, and at that time at Texas A&M University, not only had they just started allowing non-military people, non-regs, to be students, but they had also just, like in the year before that, started allowing women to attend the college at all. So, we were in the lonely freshman dorm, and so there were like 4 guys for every 1 female in the college at the time. So, as a lowly freshman in the unair conditioned dorm, we couldn't even buy a date. But we went over the girls' dorms and trick or treated, and really had a good time, and run back to our room. And some of the girls invited us in and gave us, something to drink and candy and all kinds of stuff. So we run back over to our dorm to get ready, and so we lit a candle, and we put a red light in the bowl and the deal. Grabbed some stuff that I had. Of course, I was dressed as a vampire with a stake in my heart. So I laid out on a coffee table, and Groucho Marx was just on the other side of that with a bowl of candy that we had just collected from the girls. And we waited for the girls to come trick or treat, not realizing that the girls all went to the jock dorms and to the air conditioned dorms, the high dollar dorms. They weren't coming to us. But finally, we did hear knock knock, trick or treat, giggle giggle down the hallway. And we knew how many doors there were, so we could count. Our door was wide open. We knew how many doors we were in, so we knew when we were ready. And all I can remember from that is we knew it was our turn. We watched the door. I saw 3 heads turn around and kind of peek in the room, and the 4th girl walked straight in, stopped, looked at Dracula on the coffee table, looked at Groucho Marx, screamed. The other girls screamed. They all ran down the hallway, and we never saw them. So my roommate and I looked at each other and said, "Wow, if they're that easy to scare, we really got to do a haunted house." So the following year, we talked the dormitory into putting up $300 or something as seed money to do this haunted house. We were open for 2 nights. We charged 50 cents a head, and when all was said and done, we had $1,000. So
Wow.
that was the first time I thought, well, this would be fun to do for profit someday. And I graduated from college with an architectural degree, started apprenticing in the Dallas market and as an architect. And at that time, the March of Dimes was the large show in town. So they were the ones that were doing the biggest haunted house. Most of the haunted houses at that time, in fact, all of them, I think, at that time were nonprofit. And so I volunteered with the March of Dimes, and I chaired their event for about 4 years before I started doing my own haunted houses. And, the first one that I did was for myself was very, was very low budget. I built the entire thing out of credit cards and pocket change. And we opened it up. We ran it for 15 or 20 days, whatever it was, and then shut it down. And then I tried to pay off all those credit cards. And I was about $20,000 in debt, which I thought was a huge failure at the time, not realizing that a haunted house is a business just like any other business, and it's a 3 to 5 year payout.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few years, and my dad was the one that came to me and said, you have so many people that are coming to you wanting you to design haunted houses for them. Why don't you just turn that into a business model and do that? There's a lot less risk involved and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what I did. I still periodically have owned haunted houses throughout my lifetime, but mostly I've just done it for other people. So I'm a hired gun. We've really niched ourselves into helping people get started in the haunted house industry. So it's we really good at getting people open the first year, making sure they have enough money to make it to year two, which is the biggest problem.
And are you working across the country, just locally?
I
Where
do.
are your
I do.
houses?
I even have a couple of clients in Australia. Just got back from Australia last October. So I have some other overseas clients as well. A lot of people from Saudi Arabia call me, but I've done a couple of designs, but I've never actually physically gone there to do the installs. So I have no idea what they looked like when they were completed. I would imagine they were pretty bizarre looking, but yeah, I've got clients around the country and around the world actually a little bit.
Now, you sort of coined or created this idea of, I believe it's the Pickle Theory of haunted houses. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Can you
that
explain
came
what that
from.
theory is?
Well, it's a scare forward, high capacity, high startle, low gore. Not a non-offensive kind of thing. And I started that when I was with the March of Dimes. When we were doing the March of Dimes haunted houses, and I kept a lot of notes. It's like ideas of what might do the next year, or why things didn't work, or things I could change. So I had this big stack of handwritten sheets one time, and I was in a meeting with the March of Dimes and talking about what we were going to do next year, that following year for the haunt. And I'm ruffling through these pages, and finally, one of the staff people says, "Would you like for me to take that and type it up for you?" And I said, "Oh wow, that would be awesome." So I hand her my manifesto of my thoughts on how to scare people and all that stuff, and she comes back, and of course, that was before word processing or anything, so she'd come back with this hand typewritten thing, and all bound and nicely done, and hands it back to me, and at the top of it said the Pickle Theory of haunted houses. So she had organized all my thoughts and put them all together into this nice little pamphlet thing. And at that time, we were with the Dallas March of Dimes and the Fort Worth March of Dimes, which is only like 30 miles away. The advertising, all of us we were both on the same posters, we were both on the same ads, so all the advertising was equal. And every year except for one, Fort Worth beat us. And it has to have been location, because it wasn't. In fact, one year I designed the Fort Worth haunted house as well as the Dallas haunt. But they always beat us by a few. We were only able to beat them one year, and so they were our biggest rival. That was what we were trying to do, was beat Fort Worth. And so she hands me this manifesto, and it's just like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much! I can't believe you did that for me." And of course, she's the March of Dimes. She's trying to make more money for the charity. She says, "I hope you don't mind, but I sent a copy of this to the chairman of the Fort Worth March of Dimes show, haunted house." And it's just like, oh.
How dare you?
What?
So I was mortified until I found out that he wrote "this is stupid" on it and sent it back to her. So it was just like, well, and that was the last time I really worried about, not sharing anything. I mean, everything that I've ever done, I've shared with people. We do. I started a newsletter that turned into a magazine called Haunted Attraction Magazine. We opened up. I speak at every conference that'll allow me in the door, to let me speak. So I share my ideas with everybody, because I came to the impression that sometimes people can't and don't realize the brilliance even when you slap them in the face with it, as well as in a bubble I can only get to a certain level. At some point I have to share what I know with other people that can then take it higher than me, and then I can learn from them and actually go higher than what I could have by myself. So I totally gave up even worrying about keeping anything close to the vest, and now I just share everything that I know. Ask me a question and I'll tell you. I'm not secretive about it at all.
Is there a particular attraction that you've built that stands out as your favorite?
Well, we've done some really interesting things.
I would say
The biggest
so, yeah.
budget,
Yeah.
the biggest budget I probably ever had was a haunted house that we did for Morris Costumes one year. And there were a lot of niceties in that. The scenic level was higher because they had a bigger budget, and they had lots of props. He just had props on top of props for the sake of props, because he was a props seller and he sold props. So probably the most fun one, one of the most ones that I've ever done, was with Morris Costumes. They really had a good budget, and their concept was to utilize the haunted house as a showroom for their products off season, and then send people through it and charge them in October. And so I really had kind of free reign with that. We utilized 12-foot tall walls, which were really, really cool. In fact, I had a room that was 16 feet tall. It was just incredible space that we were using. And that one was really fun. That was probably one of the best attractions that I've done, and it was a long time ago. But they had a budget. Most of the people because we've kind of niched ourselves into helping people get started. Most of the people that I deal with don't really have a massive budget to do with. So that we had a good budget with that. We did 200 houses for Universal Studios Orlando many years ago. Those were fun. We did a haunted house that was an all it was a psycho themed haunted house, so all of the characters in it were Norman.
Oh,
One of them at the beginning was Norman dressed as Norman, and the rest of them were Norman dressed as Mother attacking the people
oh,
all the way through. That was
that would
fun.
terrify me.
That
Yeah,
was fun. It was,
absolutely.
and when we were setting that show up, and one of the reasons that they hired me for that was because I told them I could do 1,000 people an hour. One of the last years that I was with the March of Dimes, I did a haunted house that we were able to push 1,000 people an hour through the show, and they were having trouble with their capacity, so they hired me to design this haunt, and we were setting up the haunt, and they started building queue line out in front of the haunted house, and I was just laughing at them. I said, "You'll never fill this queue line," and then the next day they came back and they built more, and I'm just saying, "You guys are never going to fill this queue line." But they did. I mean, when that show opened, it was massive, and they ran at 1,800 people an hour on a constant clip in that
Oh,
show.
wow.
That was just unbelievable. And we had done some things. A thing where I call a reverse funnel that the pathway actually splits at some point and then has two different pathways. I can call it a reverse funnel so it alleviates the bottlenecks and allows the show to progress faster. But that's my record probably is 1,800 people an hour. And I mean, they were pulsing them through, so they weren't even just sitting in a straight line through. And then for a couple of years, I was hired to do haunted houses for the Playboy Mansion Halloween party. So, so in 10 days, we set up a haunted house that was in a tent on the tennis court that was on the property. 5,000 square foot haunted house. We built in 10 days, operated for like 3 or 4 hours that night, and then took it apart the next day. It was so bizarre. There was the paint wasn't even dry on stuff when we were taking it apart. It was that short of a run. The second year that I did that, we did a cemetery scene, and I literally bought sod, grass on dirt, and put it in the cemetery and on top of this tennis court because it wasn't gonna be around long enough for it to die. If you couldn't do that in an October seasonal haunted house, it's a month. It'd be dirt before you were done. But
Right.
this was such a short run that I was able to do that. That was a lot of fun. We got to see the mansion, kind of backstage, and my wife and her friends got to go to the party. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Do you feel a level of intimidation with some of these? I mean, you mentioned Universal Florida, which has become a mecca for
Massive,
people for Halloween.
yeah, massive. Yeah, they're doing 3,000 people a night now. They're just doing incredible numbers, and it's growing every year. They have to add dates every year because it's growing so fast.
But you've also done Madison Square Garden, more Six Flags than you can raise a flag at.
Right.
Do you Is there this feeling when you hang up the phone where you're like, "I gotta really deliver something," or have you done this long enough that you just know exactly, here are the things that are gonna get a rise out of people, and it's interesting too, you have this, like you said, this non-event offensive style. Is that ever a hindrance, or it seems like you're going a different direction than a lot of haunted houses currently?
It never concerns me. I mean, I can bring the scares, and everything that I do is so basic. Um, it's all about. I mean, I literally have boiled haunted house design into how do I shorten my sight line so that the people can't see what's happening to the people ahead of them.
Mhm.
How do I shorten my sight line? What do I do to twist and turn up that pathway, put stuff in their face, put stuff in the way so that they can't see far enough ahead of them to see what's going on? And how do you hide the monsters? I mean, you have to do something so that the character is not standing in a room when you walk in. And I see that in some of the most elite, popular haunted houses in the country. You'll walk into the room and the actor is just standing there. He's in a great costume and the room is incredible. It's the unbelievable detail. It's an amazing room, but you almost totally remove the ability for that guy to scare you if you walk in and you can see him there. He's got to
Right.
come out of nowhere. Or the scare, you have to have another actor or some other animatronic or something that comes out of nowhere to scare people, or you're just not gonna get the effect. So the stuff that I do is so basic. I mean, it really. I mean, I would love to come up, and in October typically I see as many as 200 haunted houses around the country. And the reason I do that is so that I can see what other people are doing, kind of keep my finger on the pulse of the industry. But I'm also searching out for really great scares. And I don't think that you could take my best room design and unplug it out of my haunt and go stick it in the middle of your haunt. It wouldn't be as effective because I don't even know why, and just the chemistry or something. So I'm not really
Hmm.
copying stuff when I go around to other people's haunted houses, but
Right.
I'd love to see something that I saw at one haunted house and then something that I saw at another haunted house and put them together for the first time. People say there's no new ideas; they're just two old ideas put together for the first time. So I really
Hmm.
do that when I go out and see haunted houses. And but there aren't. I mean, there's a drop panel, there's a crash doors, there's a slap down, there's the number of things that you can do to scare people are very very limited, and then the creativity becomes, how do I hide that? How do I make sure that the people aren't realizing that that's where the people are where the actors are going to pop out of, and how to utilize it to the best ability. And that's one thing that I've got from my architectural background. If you go to an architect and you want him to design a home for you, his first question should be, how big is your furniture? Do you use a queen size bed or a king size bed? Do you like a
Right.
nightstand? How big is your dresser? What you like a seating area in your bedroom? So, and he's going to arrange that furniture on a big white clean sheet of paper. It used to be that way when you drew with a pencil. Now it's in the computer. But you arrange that on a big nice piece of paper, and only once it functions do you draw the walls around it, which is the form. So form ever follows function is kind of an architectural mantra, and I utilize that with the haunted house. What is the scare going to be in the room? I figure out what the scare is first, then I figure out what is the best approach for the patron. How do I want the people walking past that scare? And then I arrange the furniture or the gack or the crates or whatever is in the room to direct the people in that direction past the scare to make it most effective. So I design from the inside out, just like like an architect would for a house. And I think that makes my design stand out over the majority of the industry. I think mine are more effective scare wise than a lot of people that are just telling an actor to stand in the middle of the room. And now when people come in, scare them.
Right.
A great actor can do that, but an average
Right.
actor, he's going to have trouble with that.
Do you still get scared?
You can startle me. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see me. I'm not going to jump, but you can. I'll be. And it's usually because I'm looking under something to see how they did that, or not paying attention, and there's an actor there that I didn't see. You can surprise me, and I'll get an adrenaline rush, but you're not going to see me jump. I'm going to be the guy that a bus is about to run me over with honking, and I'm going to turn around and say what. So it's I don't jump, but you can get an adrenaline rush out of me if you do something I'm not expecting. But I've
Right.
always aimed my haunted house at a 21-year-old white male because he's the hardest person to scare. Early on with the March of Dimes, I would see two groups that come out of the haunted house screaming and laughing and having a good time. Oh, you got so scared, and then I'd see a group come out and says, "Oh, that sucked. That wasn't scary at all." I'm just like, what? And then the next group would come out and they're laughing and falling all over each other. And so I started looking to see who that person was that didn't like my haunt. I tried to figure out, did the actors just miss a group? I mean, what happened inside the haunt? No, that wasn't it. What I decided was it was the people that didn't like, that were saying now that coming out and wasn't saying it wasn't scary, was that 21-year-old white male. He's going through with his date, with a date, or with his friends, with his buddies, and he cannot afford to be seen screaming like a girl. So, when I realized that, I totally changed the focus, the target of my haunted house, and made it that 21-year-old male. How do I make him jump? How do I make him scream inside the haunted house? Then everybody else is a piece of cake.
When you see some of these guys kind of coming towards the house, lining up to go in, do you just sit there and sort of like twiddle your thumbs being like, I cannot wait to get you in here. Like, this is gonna mess you up.
Maybe.
If there's one really cocky guy, are you just like, I'm gonna show you, just wait.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's really up to the actors. I mean, the actors are the ones that are doing, and there's a lot of companies that sell some really, really cool animatronics and rubber critters that jump at you when you walk by, but they can't be as effective as a live actor. A live actor, first off, when an animatronic, doesn't know where the chickens are in the group. It doesn't know where the middle of the group is. It might know where the lead person is for an electric eye or a pressure mat or something, but it doesn't know where the group is. It's and scaring people is very much like telling them a joke. It's all in the setup and the timing of the punchline, and you have to do that with live characters. You can't. It's very, very difficult to do it with just animatronics. And again, because I'm niched myself into helping people get started, that I don't really spec a lot of animatronics. I'll use an animation, on something that you would never want an actor to do. If for some, and to me, a haunted house is a movie that you walk from scene to scene. So I storyboard the entire attraction, the entire event before I start designing it. So the client knows what's going to happen in the rooms as they go through the haunted house. And if the storyline calls for, somebody popping out of a barrel or somebody crawling across the ceiling or something where you would have to put an actor in a very uncomfortable place all night long, then I'll use an animatronic or some kind of animation. But for the majority of the positions, I'm gonna put a live actor in that, and even if there is an animation of some kind, I'm gonna give the actor the button to push so that he can watch and make sure that he's getting the right part of the group. And that's another thing that I do different from a lot of other designers is I designate each gear for a different part of the group. So the window where the actor's popping out of, it's going to say you're going to scare the beginning of the group, you're going to scare the end of the group, you're going to scare the middle of the group. Because I've been through so many haunted houses and been 10th in line in a group and never seen a scare because they were all happening to the front of the line.
Do you have a favorite theme for a haunted house?
Victorian mansion, whether it's vampires or zombies or, some kind of evil entity that's in there. Victorian mansion is the quintessential haunted house. I think that's where haunted houses came from, and that's definitely my favorite. I mean, again, my background is architectural, so that there's a lot of ability to do some really cool detail and that kind of stuff. And I love facades. I'm a big facade guy, so being able to draw up cool Victorian mansions to do as a facade is always fun. But yeah, the problem with the zombie theme is that you can't just have one zombie; you have to have a horde,
Right.
and that kicks your prices up for staffing and that kind of stuff. So I lean away from zombie themes. One of the latest trends in the haunted house industry in the last 4 or 5 years maybe has been the contact haunted house, where the actors are allowed to touch you going through, and you have to dig through something gross in a toilet to find a key to find your way out of the room and that kind of stuff. And when I first started doing haunted houses, it was in the 70s, and at that time the actors touching people was very common, very common. And we had just graduated from spaghetti for brains and peeled grapes for eyeballs. We just graduated from that. And I'm looking now here, we've come back to now where, that toilet with gross stuff in it is really just spaghetti for brains. It's just the production value is much better, but really it's just kind of the same thing. So it's all just kind of come full circle. And, I don't think touching people is something that benefits the haunted house.
Right.
But I do think that the perception is that a haunted house that has allowed their actors to touch people is scarier than one that doesn't. So one of the things that I do for my clients is we take off it used to say nothing will touch you, going through the haunted house. And then an attorney told me once, if you say something that says nothing will touch you when you're going through the haunted house and something does, then you're liable.
Right.
So we're taking that kind of information off, and it might even say, yes, you will be touched, just to get past the concept of it being not as scary because the actors aren't allowed to touch you.
Why do you think people love to be scared?
A haunted house gives people the opportunity to experience that life or death situation in a safe environment where that you're going to walk out the other end. And it's an adrenaline rush, just like a roller coaster is. I mean, it's an absolute adrenaline rush, and in fact, probably you'll get more rushes than you would in a roller coaster because there's a scare around every corner. And it's so funny. I did a seminar on the psychology of fear one time at a convention, and so I was looking through the internet looking for photographs of people getting scared, so I could add that to as just some graphics for the seminar. And almost every photo I had, every photo I could find had one person just absolutely frightened out of their mind, and then somebody right beside him laughing their ass off. It was that it was that juxtaposition of this is so fun, it's funny, and I think I'm gonna die kind of situation. That was so much fun, and you see that in a movie. I honestly think that
Hmm.
fear and laughter and terror are connected somehow on the backside of some circle, because
Yeah.
in a movie, in a horror movie, if something happens, everybody screams, and then everybody starts laughing about it, and then they're talking. So
Right.
there's got to be some kind of a connection between fear and laughter that makes it fun. And thank God people love to do it, because it would have kept me out of a job for 40 years. So
For more information on Leonard and to see how he might be able to help you scare up some business, that's a Halloween thing, you can go to his website, entrepreneurs.com.
You can follow us on all the various socials. Our website is whythepodcast.com and has all sorts of additional stories and videos. It's also where you can sign up for our newsletter. We're also on YouTube if you're into that kind of thing. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, because if you don't, we'll call your mother and tell her that she's completely right. You would look so much prettier if you smiled more.
Why the Podcast is part of Mudhouse Media. Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mustonen. The theme song was performed by the Electrosynth-O-Magnetic Polyphonic Orchestra. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?